Hello, we are recording from the Cradle of Liberty, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is Steve McKnight, and this is a new episode of the Liberty Brawler Podcast with Steve McKnight. On today's show, we have an interview with Arvin Vohra, U.S. Senatorial candidate for Maryland, and also presidential hopeful for 2020, and Shawn Quinn, gubernatorial hopeful for the state of Maryland. Now let's go live with our interview with Arvin Vohra. Hi, we're now live with Arvin Vohra, and he's a former LNC vice chair. He's ran for Maryland House and U.S. House, and is currently running for U.S. Senate in Maryland. Arvin, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me on, Steve.
Now, I did a little research at home, and I found out that you actually found Ayn Rand as your influence into the libertarian movement.
That's true. When I first read The Fountainhead, to me that was just eye-opening. I had never realized that all these thoughts that for me were kind of latent were something that other people felt just as strongly as I did. The idea that you have the right to the fruits of your labor, the idea that the work you do can be an extension of your own excellence rather than, some kind of servitude to somebody else. It was a major awakening for me. Later when I read Atlas Shrugged, really getting into this idea that taxation is morally wrong, that taxation is in fact theft, that no one has the right to steal from anyone else no matter what shallow justification they give. That to me was a really, really strong opening. And I know there's a lot of folks who are saying we need to get away from that Ayn Randian type of real aggressive libertarianism. I'll tell you this, you're wrong. As the growth in the aggressive side of the libertarian movement, often outside of the LP, has shown, it is that kind of aggressive libertarian, that unapologetic libertarianism that we really need right now.
Yes, I've noticed that you've taken more of the, I guess I'll use the word audacious approach. Is that fair?
Sure. But the thing is, I'm not sure it's really that audacious to say that those who serve the state, either in its propaganda arm as, public school teachers, or as the enemy creation arm, as in terms of being military soldiers, I don't think it's that audacious to say that that's against what libertarians stand for. We are anti-government. It comes down to that. And to suggest that you can be anti-government while still supporting the two biggest parts of the government, to me, is either just disingenuous or illogical or, just plain confused, because there's no way for that to work.
Sure. And I'm also curious, now that you've stated that point, what else are you doing outside of that as an outreach to kind of let people know in a NAP-approved way that you mean this and you want to promote it?
Sure. There's two major things that I do. One that's big and major and official, and the other one that I think is a little bit more subtle. In terms of non-political outreach, I spend a lot of time talking to people about homeschooling. I work in education. I work in private and free market, non-government education. Obviously, I try to make that business as good as I can because I want more people to find either my business or other businesses like it that are non-coercive, that are not part of the state's propaganda arm. So that's one thing that I do. I really talk to a lot of people about, homeschooling as an option. I talk about it with my students. I talk about it with other people that view me as an expert in the field, that there are better things you can do, that if you actually want the best for your children, it's not government schools. It never has been. It never will be. So that's one thing. When it comes to things like military recruiting, I do a lot of outreach right now, and this is something that's actually kind of new for me. I'm doing a lot of outreach in the men's movement. I actually just recently wrote a book. The paperback version just came out. It's called Pull Out, play on the words lean in. It's called Pull Out, Men, Modern Life, and Mutiny. And one of the things that I talk about in that book is why, as part of a proper definition of masculinity, as part of real masculinity, there is no place for being part of the government's army in terms of defining a real and meaningful masculinity. So those are the two big areas where I do that kind of non-political outreach.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Now, knowing what you know now, compared to when you first came into the liberty movement and became a libertarian, what would you say is a good read? What would you say are good ideas to shoot for our incoming libertarians that seem to be coming in quite a good flux right now?
Sure. I think it's really, really, really important to share with incoming libertarians the libertarian views that might be deal breakers for them. Because the last thing that we want is people coming in with views that are absolutely essential to their honest and authentic politics, tricking them into believing that they're libertarianism, then leaving them either confused or angry, or even worse, allowing them to misdefine what libertarianism is. We need to say, listen, libertarianism does not allow for government schools. Minarchism doesn't, classical liberalism doesn't, anarchism doesn't. If government schools are very important to you, this is not the right place for you. There are other places that you might like, or you might want to create something of your own. But we need to have the integrity, the honesty, the authenticity to say that is not a part of any type of libertarianism. There is no room in libertarianism for that view of any kind. And so I think it's really important to share what the important parts of our movement are. Yes, we believe that you should be able to open carry an alcohol container in your car. Yes, we believe that you should not have to, you should be able to enjoy yourself however you want to, whether with drugs or something else. Yes, we believe that, you should be able to constitutionally carry instead of having to get a permit from the state to carry. Those are things that we believe, but the big things that we believe are more important to share early on.
Thank you. That's a very good perspective. Now, going on to actually starting with the Senate campaign and then juggling the hats with the presidential campaign, how do you have the time to do what you do? More specifically, if I was a new libertarian who's thinking about running for office like you have in the past and your accolades are there, what do you do to get ready for this, and what do you do to get this stuff done? Because you're on a podcast right now at 4 o'clock on a Monday.
Mm-hmm. So part of it is, I have a business schedule that allows me more flexibility. I can take off pretty much any time I need and somebody can cover for me, because we are innovative. At this point, we do all of our work online, so I can also work from pretty much wherever I am. So I've definitely done a lot of things specifically because I knew I wanted to do bigger national politics to make it possible. But when it comes down to it, it's not really so much about having all the time in the world. Politics is much more a measure of your integrity than a measure of your time. It means you need to be ready to say in front of a group of people, and this is the hard stuff. This is the hard part of politics. If you're in a room of 1,000 people, every single one of whom wants to ban guns, and they're going to ask you your opinion, you have a choice. You can give some non-answer, and then, the room might not hate you that much. Or you can tell the truth, which is that libertarians want to repeal all gun laws. We want to repeal laws that ban automatic weapons. And that's the hard part. And you need to psychologically prepare yourself for that. Because if you're not ready for that, then you could have 50 hours a day free, and you won't be ready for it.
Very good, very good. Now, if you're elected to U.S. Senate for Maryland, what are you going to do for our listeners that other candidates will not be able to do if elected?
There's nothing that I can do that other candidates aren't able to do. They're just not willing to do it. The first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sponsoring legislation to abolish the income tax, to massively cut back existing federal agencies, to fire most or all federal workers, to end the war on drugs, to shut down foreign military bases, bring the troops home, lay them off, let them find jobs that are actually productive and useful. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to be doing that other people are unwilling to do. I don't believe in the welfare state. I believe it is toxic at a social level. I believe it's toxic at an individual level. I think, one of the things I talk about in my new book, Pull Out, is that it's also one of the most toxic things to young men today. When you have a situation where you have so many young men who are, spending all their time on red pill type sites, learning how to be more psychologically abusive instead of learning how to be better providers, that to me is a direct consequence of essentially negating the relevance of the provider role. If you're a man today, or a woman today for that matter, you're forced to provide for everybody, for every kid that you had nothing to do with. That to me is toxic, and it's degrading to people, and it turns people into degraded people. So I'm going to be working to get rid of the welfare state. I think every part of it is absolutely wrong. I don't want to see it replaced by something. I want to see it gone. I don't really want to see it replaced by a private solution either. I don't believe in any kind of welfare or anything that looks like welfare. I think it's wrong. I think it's morally wrong. I think it's toxic. So that's a major thing. Same thing with warfare. I simply do not believe that dealing with other nations with violence is a way to accomplish anything useful. I believe in making trade, not war. And that will be the two big things, my opposition to warfare and my opposition to welfare, that are going to set me apart from the other candidates running for this position.
Now, Arvin, I have to ask you another question about if you're elected as the U.S. Senator in Maryland, how would you reach out to assist in partisan problems that are clearly going all over the news right now?
Sure. So when you say assist in the partisan problems, do you mean how I address some of the divisiveness, or
how you address some of the divisiveness? How, for instance, the tit for tat, trying to make things more bipartisan or tripartisan in this case, things like that.
I think that this comes down to being honest and having integrity in what you say. Now, I know that there's a lot of people in the world that disagree with things that I believe. That's totally fine. I get that people are going to have different views. I don't think there's a lot of people that believe that I'm not forthright enough. And I think a major part of the partisanship that we're seeing right now is coming from clear and flagrant dishonesty. With the latest issue around the Supreme Court nominee, we basically see the, supposed conservative, traditional family value Republicans basically saying like, it's totally okay. Well, yeah. I mean, assaulting a girl, that's like totally fine. That's kid stuff. That's not kid stuff. I mean, there's no room in libertarianism, in masculinity, in normal civil society in any part of the world for something like that. And when they're saying our side's got to win, sometimes you need to say our side made a mistake. We nominated the wrong guy. We didn't know about this. Now we're going to nominate somebody else because we want people to know that coercion is not okay. I believe that coercion is always wrong. I believe that sexual coercion is wrong. I believe that financial coercion is wrong. And if we want to be serious about ending the income tax, ending coercive behavior, we have to say, we are opposed to coercive behavior, especially when it is the worst and most graphic kind of it. And that type of just obvious dishonesty, when you have people who are saying, this is basically fine, that's the kind of stuff that we need to stand up against. And I think that the way to do that is by setting a better example and having integrity with what you believe and what you say. That's
an excellent point. And honestly, we need more of that, especially right now. Now, Arvin, we're getting close to the 15-minute mark. And towards the end of interviews, I like to ask, what would you like to get off your chest to the newcomers and prospective libertarians as in what you've learned through your experience? What are the good do's and the do-nots? And if someone wants to talk to you, how do they approach you?
Sure. I'll answer the simple question first. You want to get in contact with me, just go to votevohra.com. Just send me an email. All the contact information, whatever kind you prefer, is on the site. When it comes to what advice I would have given, I'll tell you what I would have told myself. Because when I first ran for office, I was doing all the things that I say not to do. I was talking about vouchers, which is just, food stamps for education. I was talking about fair tax, which, to me, now you don't really see me talking about that because I think it's a bad idea.
Right.
I was talking about all that soft stuff because I didn't think that people were ready to hear the truth. And I was right. People aren't ready to hear the truth. I mean, every time I talk about ending government schools among libertarians, people lose their mind. That's okay. Because some people are ready to hear the truth. And they just don't know that you also know that truth. The thing is this, if you have the courage to speak out, the other people who are waiting for someone to say something, they'll be willing to speak out. A lot of people don't want to be the first one to say something, but a lot of people are fine being the second or third or 10th person. Whatever your boldest view is, start with that. Don't hide the best parts of yourself. Those are the parts that are going to inspire people. Those are the things that will excite people. Those are the things that will make a difference. So I know in politics they always tell you to not say anything and try to be as inoffensive as possible. Don't do it. It doesn't work. If you look at the most rapidly growing political movements in America right now, they're all based on bold ideas, and we need to be a movement based on our actual bold ideas.
Arvin, thank you for doing this interview, and I really appreciate it. Everybody here at the Liberty Brawler staff wishes you the best in your election.
Thanks so much.
Now that I'm done the interview, here are my 8 talking points I took away from interviewing Arvin Vohra. 1. The work you can do can be an extension of yourself. 2. You can do non-political outreach on your beliefs to raise awareness on what you believe in. 3. Don't lie about what libertarianism really is. 4. Libertarians challenge the authority of the state. 5. If you're thinking about running for Congress, you need to have a business-like schedule and the integrity to keep the drive going. 6. If elected, Arvin will cut taxes, end the war on drugs, bring our troops home, and tackle the welfare state. 7. Coercion by government is not okay. And finally, 8. Don't be a hypocrite. Be a real libertarian instead. Next up is our live interview with Shawn Quinn, gubernatorial candidate in Maryland. Hi, we're live with Shawn Quinn. He's a former Navy veteran. He's also a former law enforcement officer. He's ran for Maryland House in 2010, ran for governor in 2014, and is now currently running for governor of Maryland. Shawn, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, how are you doing today? This is Shawn Quinn.
Great. I'm doing great. Now, I wanted to ask you, we were actually chatting, and the audience doesn't know this, that I believe that there's a gubernatorial debate tonight and someone was excluded.
Well, actually, they filmed the debate earlier today, and as Maryland government would have it, they only invited the 2 major parties to be in it. So the citizens of Maryland, when they view it tonight at 7, they'll only think that there's 2 candidates running for governor.
You know, it's amazing to me, Shawn, because you think if you keep doing the same thing and the system's broken, they'd go to a new option or try to fill in the gap with someone like you. But, you know, I guess that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different result.
Well, I kind of look at it as like you take a hammer and you drop it on your foot and it hurts. So you pick it up and you drop it on your foot again and it hurts. And you pick it up again and you drop it on your foot and you're wondering why it still hurts.
Yeah, that's excellent, Shawn. That's a great point. Now, Shawn, if you're elected, what's your plan? What are you going to do that's different than the other ones in this race?
Well, the funny thing is that when Democrats and Republicans win, they really don't want to change anything. They tell the constituents what they want to hear to get voted, but both the Republicans and Democrats, they do the same thing. Our government stays in the same direction and nothing changes. But in Maryland, the governor has a lot of control because just about every department in the state works for the governor. So it would be real easy to bring the legislators to heel by just controlling the amount of income that actually comes in the state through fines and fees and everything that all these departments charge as the average everyday citizen just to be on this planet.
Very good point. Very good point. Now, Shawn, if you're elected, how would you help try to bring some partisanship or some bipartisanship or even tripartisanship to what's going on with all this tit for tat that seems to be flying around in the news?
Well, I think the first thing is I'm going to have to bring the legislature to their knees so that they come to the table. Once they come to the table, it'll be like, this is what I want. Once you give it to me, then you can tell me something that you want, and we'll work on that. And keep going tit for tat for a while and see how that plays out. Because right now, it's whatever the legislators want, they get. And whatever the people want, they're just blowing in the wind. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Now, do you have any upcoming events, Shawn, that people can attend or any events you're planning on attending that people can find you at?
I'm at events just about every night of the week after I get off work and every weekend. My next event, I think, is on, let me look at my schedule here. I believe it's on the 5th. Hold on, I'm getting my schedule for you.
That's okay, take your time, no big deal.
Yeah, the 5th is Friday. I'm supposed to be doing something Friday night. I'm doing a candidates night at Reinerstown. Okay. So I thought I had something else on the 5th too. I think I'm actually doing the disabilities debate on the 5th, if they let me in.
Very good, very good. Now, what exactly do you want the people who are going to vote for you know about you as far as what you're going to promote and they're hoping for? In the sense of, what type of libertarian ideas are you going to be able to guarantee the people who vote for you if you're elected?
Well, it's kind of funny because I fight with the party all the time about this, because I'm not running for a libertarian job. I'm running for an office that's going to be available to all the citizens of the state. So I don't want people to think that if they vote for me, all they're going to get is libertarian and nothing else. I would like to keep a seat open at the table for anybody that wants to come to Annapolis and sit down and discuss anything that needs to be fixed in Maryland. And I'm open to listening to anything and trying anything and trying to make Maryland a better place for the people that live here. But libertarian-wise, I mean, we pretty much believe that people should be able to live the way they want without interference, as long as they don't hurt anybody or destroy property. So just about anything you put on the table is going to be pretty libertarian until you try to start directing people and say, you will do this because I said so. And I don't want to be that kind of government. I would rather have people come sit down at the table and we form a mutual idea how to make things better for everybody. And that's why I tell everybody there's always a seat at the table with me. I don't just pick and choose who gets to sit at the table and everybody else just has to, whatever they get, they get.
Now, Shawn, I understand that you've also worked with the Maryland LP and you've been an at-large member?
I was on the executive board, and right now I'm currently a central committee member.
Okay.
And I just recently left the executive board right before our last convention because I had to spend more time on my campaign. So it wasn't like I just left because they didn't want me anymore. I left because I was doing the campaign.
Where do you see, in your opinion, since you have some experience and you have the accolades, where do you see the Maryland LP in 5 years? What do you hope for? What do you think will happen?
Well, we've been doing really good here in Maryland as far as growing. Ours is the only party that's been consistently growing every year. And last year we started some county groups, so we're actually starting to have people in place in each county. So eventually I'm hoping that those all become central committees for the counties, so that we're more like the two-party agenda, where central committees and counties actually get to pick who runs for office. Right now, it's our state party picks all the offices for the state, and I'd really like to see that go as local as possible, so people in the local areas are actually picking who they want to represent them in government.
Okay. Now, I have some questions about on the issues, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Okay. How do you feel about abortion?
Okay. Well, this is kind of a tough question, because I think our biggest problem with abortion is we do not have anything set in stone on what we all agree is when life starts.
Right.
I think once we get to that point where we decide that this is when it's actually a life, it really simplifies the whole issue. Because before it's a life, you don't have as many problems to deal with. After it's a life, now you're talking about murder. So, and that's the big thing that people have a problem with. They see it as a separate life, and if you have an abortion, you're killing it. Now, I don't want to interfere with people's choice of what to do with their bodies. Now, if it was me and my wife, I don't think me and my wife would ever choose to have an abortion. But I also don't think it's my place to tell somebody else what they should do with their body. So if a woman's in her first trimester and she thinks that, suppose she was raped and she doesn't want to carry this baby to term, I think in the first trimester, if she decides that she wanted to have an abortion, I wouldn't have a lot of heartburn about backing her up in that. Now, if she was in the fourth trimester, now I have a bigger problem, because now the fetus looks like a baby. If the fetus came out of the womb, it would be able to live on its own. I have a big problem with late-term abortions. So my running mate, she is 100% pro-life. She doesn't believe in abortion for any reason. So it kind of works out pretty good, because it keeps me from being too extreme on an issue, because I have her to balance me out.
Now, could you talk a little more about your running mate? Who is she and why is she running?
Okay, my running mate is named Christina Smith. She's a young lady that I met in Hagerstown, Maryland, and she was a big advocate out there. She was pushing for child issues and women's issues and prison reform issues, and she's very well respected out there for all the work she does in the community. She had absolutely no political experience at all, which I like because it means that she's more attached to the people instead of the government. And I interviewed her along with 10 other people, and she ended up being our finalist, and she's been a godsend ever since. I mean, I think she gave out something like 300 pens the first week we were running together.
Sure. Wow. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Now, I have to ask you a question, Shawn. To do something like what you're doing now and being a candidate for the Libertarian Party, there are a lot of people who are scared to take the first steps to run for office. What do you do? What's your tricks? How do you stay prepared? How do you keep going? What's your drive?
Well, I started all this running for office back in 2010 for the simple reason that there was only one person in my district on the ballot. And I just thought that that was horrendous, that this guy could just walk in the polling place and elect himself into an office.
Right.
And that's what actually got me started, because I just didn't see any fairness there. So I wanted the people to have a choice, so I ran against him simply so there was more than one person to pick from. And I really did really well considering I only had a couple months to run, and I was just running around with signs and talking to people in my district, and it shocked me that I did so well on the ballot. So in 2014, I was actually going to run as lieutenant governor because I didn't feel I had enough experience yet as a politician, and somehow the tables got turned on me, and I ended up being the governor candidate with a really outstanding running mate, Lorenzo Gazdanaga, who had tons of experience as a politician running for office. And me and my wife just ran all over the state, shaking hands, handing out pens, talking to people, finding out what their problems were, what we could do to fix them. And we got the highest third-party vote ever in the state of Maryland. So after that, it was like I wasn't retirement age yet, so I was like, all right, I'm going to give this one more chance. If I win this November, I could do 2 terms before I retire. So I said, let's give it one more shot. And miraculously, from our last run, people just came out of the woodwork to help us this time. We have a team of 14 people helping us do everything, and they're all volunteers. Not a single one gets paid. They do everything out of their own heart and their own time. And the only thing I really pay for is when we go to events, I buy them food. Other than that, everything they do is on their own. And I said, every day I get up and I just think about these people, said I can't let these people down. They have so much heart, so much faith in me that I've got to go on every day. So I go to event after event, and I shake hands, and I just don't let the negatives get involved. You know, people get on Facebook and they'll tell me, oh, you're not qualified. Oh, you have no chance. Oh, you're only getting 1%. Oh, you're a wasted vote. But in reality, if all these people that are tired of the two-party agenda would just vote for a third-party candidate, we could change everything in one election cycle on how the government runs. So I keep going, and I'm going to keep giving it 100% until November 6th.
That's an excellent response, and I really appreciate it, Shawn. Now, let's say I'm someone who has just become a member of the Liberty Movement, or I'm not in the Liberty Movement, but I like what you're saying. What's a good way to contact you and try to pick your ear a little bit?
Okay, well, I'm on Facebook every day. I am probably the only candidate running for governor that you could come on my personal Facebook page and talk to me. You could argue with me. You could scream at me. You can call me names. And I don't throw your name out. I don't cut you off. I don't blacklist you, because I truly feel that the only way we're going to fix government is that the people and the people in government are always talking and listening to each other. You can't get that with any other candidate. So that's probably the best way you could talk to me one-on-one. But I also have a campaign Facebook page, and I have people monitoring it all the time. So if anybody asks a question on there, they immediately contact me so I can answer their questions. I have a web page, which is at citizenforquinn.org. People can support me there by donating money. They can also see where I stand on issues, and they can also leave questions there that we get right back to and answer. So there's many, many ways to get a hold of me, because I never want to be that guy that's just sitting in a locked door and doesn't know what the people are saying.
Right. Right. No, and that's an excellent point. Now, Since we're getting close to the 15-minute mark, one of the questions I always try to end on is, given your experience and what you've dealt with in the LP and running, what would you like to get off your chest as do's and do nots for people who are coming into the Liberty movement? Like, for instance, do not be disingenuous. Do try to have integrity.
Well, the first thing I'd probably tell you is you have to have a thick skin. Because libertarians...
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, libertarians are all over the place. I mean, they believe in freedom so much that they let people do things that might not be appropriate at times. And what comes to mind for me is when I was sitting at the National Convention and a guy was running for the chair and he decided to do a striptease dance knowing that C-SPAN was taping our convention.
Right, James
I was
Weeks,
like,
yes.
Right, I got no problem with this man taking his clothes off, but when there's a camera there that you know is going into the living room of people's homes where their children may be watching, it probably wasn't a responsible thing to do. So you have to learn to have a thick skin to let these things go instead of get overly excited about it. So that's probably the first thing. And then you're going to have to remember that not everybody will be as strongly supporting liberty as you. They may support liberty, but there's people that are like 100% go, go, go. And then there's that 10% that they give what they can, but it's not a lot. So you just have to take it as it comes and not take anything too personal. The object is always to get more liberty for more people.
Now, if you're interested in donating, how would one do that?
Mail a check made out to Citizens for Shawn Quinn at P.O. Box 1154 in Lusby, Maryland, 20657, or the easiest way is just to go on my webpage, citizenforquinn.org, and hit the donate button, and it goes through PayPal, so you use a credit card, whatever you like, and donate whatever you like. And I will tell you, we're going to have a blowout party on the 6th after the election, going from 8 to 11. And anybody that donates $100 will get a free ticket to that. Otherwise, it's $26 a ticket, which is not even going to come close to paying for what the party actually costs, but it'll help recoup some of that money. But we're going to have food, an open bar, we're going to have dancing, entertainment. So it's going to be a blowout one way or another, either at the end of my political career or the beginning of being governor.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on, Shawn, and we really appreciate you taking the time. Now, here is my talking points that I've taken away from the Shawn Quinn interview. 1, if elected, Shawn will bring positive change to the establishment in Maryland. 2, Shawn is not scared to get down and dirty for results. 3, Shawn will keep the table open for everyone in Maryland. 4, the Maryland LP is consistently growing, and Shawn was a big part of why. 5, if you're interested in running for office, you need thick skin. I thought that was hilarious, and he's honest. So I'm just telling you, I agree with him 100%. And 6, you can speak up to Shawn because he wants to work with you to fix government, which I think is wonderful. Well, that's all the time we have today. This is Steve McKnight signing off from the Cradle of Liberty in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.